Welcome to our newest video on the transformative period that reshaped the continent and the world. Imagine a time when the Iron Curtain separated East from West, and entire nations were under the grip of authoritarian regimes. Over the next minutes, we will uncover the economic struggles, political upheavals, and courageous movements that led to the dramatic collapse of communist rule. From the streets of Warsaw to the Berlin Wall's collapse, and the Velvet Revolution in Prague, we'll explore the human stories and pivotal events that marked this era. Stay with us until the end for a surprising insight into a unique revolution that changed the course of history. Prepare to witness a remarkable chapter of history where ordinary people rose against extraordinary odds to reclaim their freedom. This is the story of the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. Our journey begins in the aftermath of World War II. As the dust settled, Eastern Europe fell under the influence of the Soviet Union, leading to the establishment of communist regimes across the region. Countries like Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, and East Germany found themselves within the Soviet sphere, governed by Marxist-Leninist principles. The Cold War further entrenched this division, with the Iron Curtain symbolizing the ideological divide between the capitalist West and the communist East. The Soviet Union exerted tight control over its Eastern Bloc allies, using economic, political, and military means to maintain its influence. Secret police, propaganda, and state surveillance ensured compliance, stifling dissent and opposition. Despite the outward appearance of stability, underlying economic inefficiencies, political repression, and social discontent simmered beneath the surface. By the 1980s, cracks began to appear in the seemingly monolithic structure of Eastern European communism. Economic stagnation, coupled with a growing desire for political freedom and human rights, set the stage for a series of events that would ultimately lead to the collapse of communist regimes across the region. As the 1980s progressed, the economies of Eastern Europe were in severe decline. Centralized planning and inefficient industries led to widespread shortages, with long lines for basic necessities becoming a common sight. Living standards plummeted, and discontent grew among the populace. People began to question the effectiveness of their governments and the promises of the communist ideology. Social unrest was not limited to economic grievances. Political repression and the lack of personal freedoms sparked increasing opposition. Dissidents and intellectuals played a crucial role in voicing discontent and organizing resistance. Underground publications, known as samizdat, spread uncensored information and ideas, challenging the official state narrative. Public protests became more frequent and bold. Workers' strikes, student demonstrations, and rallies for human rights signaled a growing defiance against the regimes. The bravery of these individuals inspired many, creating a ripple effect that would soon engulf the entire region. The combination of economic hardship and social unrest set the stage for significant change. As the grip of communist control weakened, the people of Eastern Europe began to envision a different future, one where freedom, democracy, and prosperity could replace the oppression and stagnation they had long endured. In the mid-1980s, a new leader emerged in the Soviet Union who would inadvertently catalyze the liberation movements in Eastern Europe. Mikhail Gorbachev introduced a series of reforms aimed at revitalizing the Soviet system. His policies of perestroika, or restructuring, and glasnost, meaning openness, aimed to modernize the economy and increase transparency in government. Gorbachev's reforms had a profound impact on Eastern Europe. By relaxing the Soviet Union's strict control over its satellite states, he inadvertently encouraged movements for change. The people of Eastern Europe saw an opportunity to push for greater freedoms and reforms in their own countries. These policies also exposed the deep flaws and inefficiencies within the communist systems. As information flowed more freely, the contrast between the prosperity of the West and the struggles of the East became more apparent. This fueled further discontent and demands for change. Gorbachev's unwillingness to use force to maintain control marked a significant shift. Unlike previous Soviet leaders, he did not support the use of military intervention to suppress uprisings in the Eastern Bloc. This newfound leniency emboldened opposition movements, paving the way for the seismic changes that were about to unfold. One of the earliest and most influential cracks in the Eastern Bloc's facade appeared in Poland with the rise of the Solidarity movement. In 1980, workers at the Lenin shipyard in Gdansk went on strike, demanding better working conditions and greater political freedoms. Led by electrician Lech Wałęsa, the strikers received widespread support, and Solidarity quickly grew into a national movement. Solidarity was unique as it was not just a labor union, but also a social movement that united workers, intellectuals, and the Catholic Church. The movement's demands went beyond economic issues, calling for human rights and democratic reforms. The Polish government, under pressure, initially granted concessions, but soon imposed martial law in an attempt to crush the movement. Despite repression, Solidarity survived underground, continuing to garner support both domestically and internationally. The movement's persistence paid off when, in 1989, the government agreed to roundtable talks with opposition leaders. These negotiations led to semi-free elections, marking the beginning of the end for communist rule in Poland. Solidarity's success had a domino effect, inspiring similar movements across Eastern Europe. It demonstrated that peaceful resistance and organized activism could bring about significant political change, setting a precedent for the revolutions that followed. Perhaps the most iconic moment in the fall of communism in Eastern Europe was the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. For decades, the wall had stood as a stark symbol of the Cold War, dividing East and West Berlin and, by extension, East and West Germany. Its fall marked not just the physical reunification of a city, but the symbolic reunification of a divided continent. Throughout 1989, a wave of protests and political changes swept through East Germany. The population, inspired by reforms in neighboring countries, began to demand greater freedoms and the right to travel. On November 9th, a botched announcement by a government official mistakenly suggested that the border was open immediately. Crowds gathered at the wall, and, faced with overwhelming numbers, the guards opened the gates. Scenes of jubilation followed as families and friends separated for decades were reunited. People climbed on top of the wall, chipping away at it with hammers and chisels. The world watched in awe as this symbol of division was dismantled. Piece by piece, the fall of the Berlin Wall was a pivotal moment in history. It signaled the imminent collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe and heralded a new era of freedom and unity for Germany and the entire continent. Following the fall of the Berlin Wall, a wave of revolutions swept through Eastern Europe, each country experiencing its own path to freedom. In Hungary, the movement for reform began as early as 1988, with the Communist Party renouncing its monopoly on power. By 1989, Hungary had opened its borders with Austria, effectively breaching the Iron Curtain and allowing East Germans to flee to the west. In Czechoslovakia, the Velvet Revolution unfolded rapidly in November 1989. Led by dissidents and intellectuals like Václav Havel, massive peaceful protests filled the streets of Prague. The communist government, unable to withstand the overwhelming demand for change, relinquished power without violence, leading to the establishment of a democratic government. Romania's transition was starkly different. The regime of Nicolae Ceausescu, known for its brutal repression, faced a sudden and violent uprising in December 1989. Protests erupted in Timișoara and quickly spread to Bucharest. The military eventually turned against Ceausescu, leading to his capture and execution on Christmas Day. Romania's revolution, though bloody, resulted in the overthrow of one of the region's most repressive regimes. Bulgaria also saw a peaceful transition. Protests and political pressure led to the resignation of longtime leader Todor Zhivkov In November 1989, the Communist Party eventually conceded to multi-party elections, paving the way for democratic reforms. Each of these revolutions shared a common theme: the unyielding desire for freedom and democracy. Despite differing in methods and outcomes, they collectively marked the end of communist rule in Eastern Europe. The fall of communism in Eastern Europe was not an isolated event. It was influenced significantly by the international community. Western governments, particularly the United States, played a crucial role by providing moral, political, and economic support to dissident movements and newly emerging democracies. During the Cold War, Western leaders consistently criticized the human rights abuses and lack of freedoms in communist countries. Organizations like Radio Free Europe broadcast uncensored news and information behind the Iron Curtain, helping to inspire and inform dissident movements. The U.S. government, through diplomatic channels and covert operations, supported opposition groups, offering them a lifeline and amplifying their voices. The Vatican, under Pope John Paul II, also had a profound influence. The Pope, himself a native of Poland, was an outspoken critic of communism. His visits to Poland galvanized the solidarity movement and offered spiritual and moral support to those fighting for freedom. The Catholic Church played a significant role in providing a network for organizing and resistance. As communist regimes began to fall, the West provided critical economic aid to support the transition to market economies and democratic governance. The European Community, which would later become the European Union, extended support and eventually membership to Eastern European countries, aiding their integration into the broader European framework. The international community's support was instrumental in ensuring the success and stability of the transitions. It underscored the global significance of the fall of communism, demonstrating a collective commitment to democracy and human rights. The collapse of authoritarian regimes brought immense joy and hope to Eastern Europe, but the transition to democracy and market economies was fraught with challenges. The immediate aftermath saw significant political, economic, and social upheaval as countries navigated the shift from centralized control to pluralistic democracies. Economically, the transition was difficult. Many state-owned enterprises were inefficient and uncompetitive in a market economy. Privatization processes often led to significant unemployment and social inequality, as assets were sometimes acquired by a new class of oligarchs. Inflation soared, and living standards initially declined for many people, creating a sense of disillusionment. Politically, establishing stable democratic institutions was a complex task. Former communist officials sometimes retained significant power, complicating the reform processes. Crafting new constitutions, conducting free elections, and building the rule of law required time and effort. Corruption and political instability were common issues in the early years of transition. Socially, the legacy of decades of repression left deep scars. Building a civil society and fostering a culture of political participation and trust in new democratic institutions was challenging. Additionally, the rapid social changes and the opening up to Western influences created cultural shifts that were sometimes met with resistance. Despite these challenges, the resilience and determination of the people of Eastern Europe ensured progress. International aid, EU integration, and a strong desire for a better future helped these countries navigate the tumultuous path of transition. Over time, many have successfully established themselves as vibrant democracies with growing economies. Though the journey continues, this transformation in Eastern Europe left a profound legacy and offers important lessons for the world. It marked the end of an era of ideological confrontation and the beginning of a new chapter of democracy and integration in Europe. The events of 1989 and the early 1990s demonstrated the power of popular movements and the importance of perseverance in the face of oppression. One of the key legacies is the reaffirmation of the universal desire for freedom and human rights. The revolutions in Eastern Europe underscored that authoritarian regimes, no matter how entrenched, can be challenged and overcome by determined and united populations. The courage and resilience shown by those who risk their lives for liberty continue to inspire movements for democracy around the globe. The transitions also highlighted the complexities and difficulties of shifting from autocratic regimes to democratic governance. The economic and political challenges faced by post-communist countries offer valuable lessons in the importance of managing change carefully and inclusively. The role of international support and the benefits of regional integration, as seen with EU membership, emphasize the importance of solidarity and cooperation in global politics. Moreover, the peaceful nature of most transitions, especially the Velvet Revolution, demonstrates that non-violent resistance can lead to profound and lasting change. The story of Eastern Europe's transition from communism to democracy is a testament to the enduring human spirit and the continuous quest for a just and free society. And now, for the surprising insight we promised at the beginning. Among the many revolutions, the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia stands out for its remarkable peacefulness. In November 1989, a series of non-violent protests and strikes led to the collapse of the communist government. The term Velvet Revolution was coined to reflect the smooth and peaceful nature of the transition. Led by dissidents such as Václav Havel, the revolution saw students and citizens taking to the streets, demanding political reforms and an end to the one-party rule. The government's restraint from using force and the public's insistence on non-violent resistance made this revolution unique. The Civic Forum, an opposition coalition, negotiated with the government, leading to the resignation of the communist leadership and the election of Havel as president. The Velvet Revolution is a powerful example of how peaceful protests and dialogue can bring about significant political change. It serves as an enduring symbol of the triumph of non-violent resistance and the power of the people to shape their own destiny. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. From the economic struggles and social unrest to the influence of Gorbachev's reforms and the courageous movements that sparked revolutions, we've explored a pivotal period in history. The collapse of these regimes and the subsequent transitions were complex and challenging, but they ultimately led to a new era of freedom and democracy. If you found this exploration enlightening, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Armchair Archaeology for more captivating historical journeys. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. What other epic events from history should we uncover together? Let us know in the comments below. Until then, keep discovering, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of history alive.